languages here today. I'd like to talk about Krivisha Manihandan. Krivisha, she's going to sing here. She's well known for singing Tamil devotional slogans, and she started her journey with the guidance of Nitya Soumya. She was widely appreciated for her recognized for her songs, for her devotional slogans for clarity, devotion, and expressive renditions. And she contested in two prestigious competitions, Priya Ragangal 2024, Tudur, and she won the title in both competitions. Recently, she made her debut in independent music album with playback singer Padmalata. She was awarded Dr. Abdul Kalam Award by London Tamil Sangam for her contributions and interest towards music at such a young age. கிருஷா பக்தி பாடல்கள் மட்டும் பாடுறவங்க இல்லை, அவங்களுடைய இசை சார்ந்த ஆர்வம், திரைப்பாடல்கள், இன்னும் சில நாட்டுப்புற பிற இலக்கிய பிற இசை வடிவங்கள்லையும் இருக்கு. ஸோ கிருஷா மணிகண்டனை இப்போ இந்த கடவுள் வாழ்த்து பாட நான் அழைக்கிறேன் மேடைக்கு. வாங்க கிருஷா.
Today I'm going to be singing Prabhu Ganapati and Tripugal. Prabhu Ganapati Paripurana Valvalvaye. Prabhu Ganapati Paripurana Valvalvaye. Prabhu Ganapati Ganapati துதி பாடி ஆடி வந்தன் சன்னதி சரணடைந்தோமே. சாந்து வணங்கி துதி பாடி ஆடி வந்தன் சன்னதி சரணடைந்தோமே. சாந்த சித்த சௌபாகியம் யாவையும் தந்தருள் சத்குரு நீயே. சாந்த சித்த சௌபாகியம் யாவையும் தந்தருள் சத்குரு நீயே. Prabhu Ganapati Paripurana Valvarulvaye. Prabhu Ganapati 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 Adi Moola Gananatha Gajanura Arpuda Tavala Swarupa. Adi Moola Gananatha Gajanura Arpuda Tavala Swarupa. Deva Deva Jaya Vijaya Vinayaka Chinmaya Parashiva Dhira. Deva Deva Jaya Vijaya Vinayaka Chinmaya Parashiva Dhira. Prabhu Ganapati Paripurana Valvarulvaye. Prabhu Ganapati 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 வீரல் மாறனைந்து மலர் வாழை சிந்து மிக வானிலிந்து வெயில் காய வினை மாலை வந்து தடல் போல ஒன்று இணை மாதர் தம் தம் வசை கூறா. கூறவான கொன்று ஒரு பேதை கொண்டு முடிதான துன்ப மயில் தீரா. குளிர் மாலை என்க மணி மாலை தந்து குறை தீர வந்து ஒரு காயோ. மரிமானோ கந்து இறையோ மகிழ்ந்து வடிபால தந்து மதியாரா. மலை மாவு சிந்து அலை வேலை அன்று வடிவேலெறிந்த அதிரா. அலைவானறிந்தும் இறைத்தாளிடைஞ்சும் அடியாரிடைஞ்சும் கலைவோமே. உன்னை அறிவாளறிந்தும் இறைத்தாள் இடைஞ்சு அடியாரிடைஞ்சு கலைவோமே. அழகான செம்பொன்மயில்
We wish you all the very best for your musical journey. Now I would like to talk about my friend Prabhu Ram. Prabhu Nindagala Vasagar. I remember Prabhu delivering a speech on Rai Marksam's Uppuvedi in 2017 in one of the events conducted in London. Prabhu, again, he had been a part of Solvanam's editorial board and he has written about Tamil writers, literature work in Solvanam and a few other online magazines. I would like to call Prabhu for welcoming speech. ஜெய் தன்னுடைய 2016-17 வந்த ஒரு பயணத்தில் பிரபுவை பற்றி லண்டனில் எனக்கு ஒரு பிரபுவை தெரியும் என்று குறிப்பிட்டுள்ளார். நண்பர் பிரபுவை வரவேற்புரை வழங்க அழைக்கிறேன். பிரபு வாங்க.
Vanakkam, and a very good evening to everyone assembled here today. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you today on behalf of Vishnupuram Ilakkiyavattam UK. We are honored to have among us a truly eminent figure, one of the finest literary minds of our times, Dr. Jay Mohan, a writer who needs no introduction. Over the past several decades, he has created an extraordinary body of work spanning novels, short stories, literary criticism, and philosophical essays. His monumental masterpiece, Vishnupuram, a 26-volume reimagining of the Mahabharata, stands as one of the most ambitious achievements in modern literature. We are very proud to have you with us today. A warm welcome to you, Dr. Jay Mohan, sir. We also have with us Mr. Swaminathan, a retired senior associate editor at Dinamani and a producer at the BBC Tamil service in London. Welcome, Mr. Swaminathan, sir. I also extend a warm welcome to writer Ajitan, who has travelled back to be with us after conducting philosophy session in Cirencester, UK. I also take this opportunity to welcome the readers of Tamil, Telugu, Kannada and Malayalam gathered here under one roof to celebrate the spirit of literature, thought and South Indian storytelling. We have assembled here today for a very special reason, to create a shared space for conversation across South Indian languages on the works of Dr. Jay Mohan. Dr. Jay Mohan's writings have been translated into Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Kannada and also English, and his works have earned admiration from readers across the world. This evening, we are fortunate to have with us readers from Telugu and Kannada, Mr. Pavan and Dr. Premalata, who will share their experiences of reading Jay Mohan and offer perspectives on how his stories resonate in our neighboring states. A warm welcome to Mr. Pavan and Dr. Premalata. We also wanted the voice of the younger generation who have grown up here in the UK, far from the landscapes and cultural settings where many of these stories originate. We are delighted to have Aditya Manivandan and Ananya Govindarajan, who have kindly volunteered to share their reflection on reading Jay Mohan's works. Welcome Aditya and Ananya. We will then have the privilege of hearing from the master himself on the theme Ayal Nilathil Tennindi Ilakkiyatthirkku Oru Iyakkam. Following that, we will open the floor for an interactive question and answer session so that readers may engage directly with Dr. Jay Mohan. Once again, I warmly welcome all of you in this special evening, an evening to be immersed in the joy of literature and meaningful conversation. I invite you all to join as we begin.
We all know that the writer Jay Mohan has received honorary doctorate from Taxila Universities in November 2025. And we know about his work on Indian culture, literature, philosophy, and many other things that like he's been doing over the years. His Vishnupuram goes way deep into Indian culture, spirituality, and philosophy. It talks about Mahabharata. And writer Giridharan introduced about a startup, Viswamaya Arts. And they have been creating miniature replicas of iconic sculptures such as Jnana Saraswati of Gangaikonda Solapuram, Rishabhagunjaram of Dharasuram, and Bragadiswara temple showcases another one about Bragadiswara temple. It showcases the pinnacle of Chola temple architecture with its towering vimana and intricate sculptures. Among its renowned sculptures is a particularly striking depiction of Goddess Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge. And this particular sculpture is going to be given to writer Jay Mohan by London Swaminathan, who is a writer and journalist. He has worked and he has worked as an associate editor at Dinamani and as a producer at BBC Tamil Service in London. He has written nearly 120 books, including Valmiki to Valluvar Varai, Ancient Tamil Literature News, Alva's Miracle News, and Kambaramayana Paadalgal Agaravi. அவர் நடத்திய ஒரு கம்பராமாயணம் பாடல்கள் பற்றிய ஒரு தொகுப்பினை நண்பர்கள் ஒவ்வொரு வாரமும் அவருடன் சேர்ந்து கம்பராமாயண பாடல்களை பாடியும் அதை பற்றி விவாதித்து மகிழ்ந்த விஷயங்களும் இதே லண்டனில் நடந்துள்ளன. I would like to invite Dr. Sir, please come on stage to felicitate Dr. Janaki. Sculpture from Vishnupuram Arts. Thank you, Swaminathan sir. And we all know that our Jai Mohan is always having conversations with youth, whether it is India, Tamil Nadu, South India, United Kingdom, or even United States of America. Has been recently visiting and having conversations with youth. And here in this place today, we have Aditya and Ananya. They're going to talk about what they had gone through in this particular book, Stories of the True. I would like to invite Aditya, who is our dear friend's Mani's son. Aditya has been doing business at the University of Warwick, and he's been pursuing a degree on screenwriting and filmmaking. He's been enjoying writing critical reviews for films and books, and he enjoyed reading Jai Mohan's Stories of the True collection, and he wanted to talk about it, what he really experienced in the book. Please, Aditya, come on stage.
Hi, so I just wanted to talk about The Elephant Doctor, the translation I read of The Elephant Doctor. So it was the first of your works I've read, so I wasn't really sure what to expect, especially with it being a short story. Most short stories I'm familiar with follow kind of a simple narrative set apart either through acting as an allegory or having a twist ending that recontextualizes everything. The Elephant Doctor was really different, however, in that it doesn't really act as one or the other, but it doesn't avoid these traits either. The story is very simple and straightforward, but the way it was laid out was what was really special. The first chunk kind of slowly builds anticipation through mystery. Who is this doctor they're talking about? What did they do? How does our narrator know them? The answers don't really try to be anything too jaw-dropping or revelatory either, but that does not mean this building of anticipation was some unearned opening hook. On the contrary, there are two reasons for this. For one, it just felt blindingly real, making you aware that this is not just a prose, but an account of truth you are thrown into, with a story that stretches before and after the pages of the book. Well, not every detail is laid out at the start, but revealed at its own pace, like life itself. For two, it extracts as much depth as possible out of a story this simple. By beginning the story through a limited tunnel vision of this narrator, you are only looking for what the narrator is looking for, only for it to become obvious that the true meaning of the story is about much more than that. It's not a plot twist per se, but it is a subversion from the character's initial beliefs, and setting you up to be subverted like this allows you to empathize with the narrator's character arc that much more. Reading it a second time made me even more aware of these setups, such as some very subliminal foreshadowing, like the mentions of young tourists at the start, that you would not think means anything through the narrator's unlearned eyes, but only as a reader who has got to the end of the story before. These are both great ways for the reader to effectively live through the story as the narrator himself, which is made more exciting by the sheer detail of the descriptive writing. Everything from the beauty of the forest to the tragedy of a carcass is talked about so vividly. The similes and metaphors too are some of the best uses of literary devices I've ever read, not only due to how cleverly they evoke an image, but also due to their subtle subtext. The parallels used to compare the labyrinths of the forest with labyrinths of bureaucracy, for example, or the simile used to liken littered cigarettes to maggots raiding an elephant corpse. Both work as clever allegories for man's consistent interference with nature. With all this, it felt like such a textbook example of how to extract depth and complexity from even simplest stories through clever execution. The way it forces empathy with the narrator to make descriptions and character arcs ring all the more effectively is as engaging as it is masterful, and it made me very keen to pick it up and read it again. Thank you.
இளைய தலைமுறைகள் நம்முடைய நவீன இலக்கியத்தை படிக்கிறார்கள் and they have been enjoying. அது உண்மையிலே ஒரு நல்ல விஷயம். அடுத்த தலைமுறைக்கு நம் இலக்கியத்தை நாம் எடுத்து செல்ல வேண்டும். நம்முடைய குடும்பத்திலும் நம்முடைய குழந்தைகளையும் இலக்கியத்திற்கு அறிமுகப்படுத்த வேண்டும் அப்படின்றதுக்கு ஆதித்யா ஒரு சிறந்த உதாரணம். தேங்க்ஸ் ஆதித்யா. ஆதித்யாவை போலவே இன்னொரு நபரை பற்றியும் நான் சொல்ல வேண்டும். I would like to introduce Ananya Govindarajan. and she's also doing her engineering graduation in Warwick University. And I met Ananya a couple of times, and today I've been, I think I was at her place today, and she's always immersed in books. She's enjoying music, and I'd like to, I was very happy to see that she was one of the finalists in BBC's University Challenge in her university, and that's one of the testament to the, testament to the joy she finds in fun facts and in history especially. Even while she's talking, she's always talking about books, literature that she enjoyed, and more importantly, she's the daughter of our friends Arvind and Deepa, who organized Western philosophy classes by Ajitan in Cirencester last week. So I'm very happy to introduce Ananya to the stage. Please talk about your experience about the stories of the book.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Ananya, and I'm going to talk about my experience of reading, my thoughts about and interpretation of the Palm Leaf Cross, especially reading it in translation, as I do not read Tamil. And from my perspective as someone who didn't grow up in India, who maybe doesn't have the cultural context to interpret it in the same way that some of you might have. Have people read the Palm Leaf Cross before? How many people have read it? Show of hands? And I'm assuming you guys all read it in Tamil, yes? Yes. I'm interested to see how different our interpretations are going to be depending on the language that we read it in. So I started this story looking for clues. I didn't know what time period this was set in. I didn't know who the narrator was. I didn't know where this was set. So I'm trying to work it out. When is this? Where is this? What's happening? Who is telling me the story? The first thing that you're told is that the narrator's father is dead. He first encounters the doctor who becomes the central point of the story at his father's deathbed. We learn about his father. We learn that he was a Palmyra climber, and that he suffered from a horrible accident where he fell off the tree, and he's described when he was found by the narrator as writhing like a twig that caught fire, which I think is a very evocative metaphor. And when his mother is told, both by an old man on the ward and by the doctor himself, that her husband is going to die, she is in hysterics, she's wailing, she's crying. And one of the first things that really jumped out at me about this story was the lack of compassion by the nurse. There's a nurse who tells her that she's crying too loudly, that she needs to go outside. And then again, when she starts crying outside, the nurse comes out and tells her again that she's being too loud. I don't want to say callousness, but the lack of compassion really struck me. One of the first things that I noticed. Now I have to admit something that I think some people might have realized before, but I didn't. It took me until the end of the first section of the story to find out that the doctor was English, and this really recontextualized the entire first section of the story for me. Suddenly, his insistence that the narrator converts to Christianity, his insistence that the body of his father will be buried as a Christian, suddenly it made sense. Suddenly it seemed his instinct to violence. 2 times he threatens to beat the narrator for what seems like minor slights. Suddenly it sort of was recontextualized for me, and it really shocked me when I discovered, oh, this doctor is a missionary. It really got me thinking about Christianity and missionaries as tools of colonialism. I really was struck by the fact that the names of the narrator and his father are never mentioned until the point at which both of them convert to Christianity. The narrator goes to see his father's funeral, and he's introduced as Joseph's son, and his father's body is described bleeding still, wrapped in rags, and when he's buried under the name Joseph, and we never find out his given name. At the end of that section, the narrator converts to Christianity, and he finishes it saying, "My name is James Daniel." We never find out his birth name. After this point in the story, it becomes a sort of twin narrative. The narrator tells us about Dr. Oh, I forgot his name, sorry. Yes, I was going to say his full name. Dr. Theodore Theodore Howard Somervell and his work in India. He worked as a doctor in India for almost 40 years after his 2 expeditions in the Himalayas. And it also becomes about the narrator's faith. Multiple times he talks about how he doesn't really feel the words in the Bible. He doesn't really understand the devotion to Christ that this person that he idolizes so much has. He almost feels that veneration for Dr. Somervell instead of for Christ. And he says this to Dr. Somervell. He talks to his mother about her conversion to Christianity. And she says, Christ is meat and rice. Christ means food. There are a couple of stories that really, that I remembered quite clearly that the narrator tells us about Dr. Somervell. One of them is almost a comparison between an experience that he has on the ward and a story that Dr. Somervell tells about his time as a soldier in World War I. In this story that the narrator tells, he tells a story about how Dr. Somervell is treating the wound of a patient on the ward when he's interrupted by another patient who's yelling, please, please, I'm in pain, please come and help me. And Dr. Somervell just goes up to that patient and smacks him and then goes back to working on the patient he was working on. Afterwards, he tells a story to the narrator about his time working at the Battle of the Somme in World War I. The Somme campaign was one of the bloodiest campaigns of the war, and thousands, if not millions, of soldiers died for very little land gained. And Dr. Somervell tells a story about working in the Somme, being one of 4 doctors on a ward with hundreds of patients, and how none of them complained or asked to be treated out of turn. There's no real parallel drawn beyond the fact that these 2 stories are placed back to back, but it was something that I noticed and something that really stuck with me. The final story that I want to tell you about my thoughts on the palm leaf cross is the story right at the end when they're treating people in the cholera epidemic. Dr. Somervell goes to the house of 2 women who have one of whom has lost all of her children to cholera. She's distraught. Both of them are distraught. How will I go on living, she says to him. And he takes a photo of Lord Guruvayurappa from the wall and gives it to her and says, this is your child. And she sobs and she cries because of the comfort that he's brought her. And in that moment, the narrator finds his faith. He sees a vision similar to the vision that Dr. Somervell describes that he had on one of his expeditions to Everest, a vision of Christ giving him a cross made of palm leaves. And in that moment, he cries, oh Christ, oh God, and he's found his faith. And that really struck me as well. This story, one of many stories in Stories of the True, about Dharma, about the triumph of humanity, about duty, and about destiny. That last image was one of the images that really stuck with me. And I'm interested to see how the rest of you felt about this story. Thank you for listening to my interpretation.
And it's really wonderful to listen from youth. And they have been into the literature, which they're really enjoying. And I would like to see more from you guys, and you probably have to write it in some online magazines about your review. Okay, thanks.